They came to us as saviors, their ships like spun sugar drifting down through the smog-choked skies that we had created. We called them the Lumina, for they spoke in light, their crystalline bodies shimmering with a constant, gentle pulse of soft blues and warm golds. They didn't walk, they glided, their forms like elegant, elongated sculptures of quartz, featureless and yet profoundly expressive. They offered a miracle, a solution to the slow, suffocating death of our world. Humanity was on its knees, choking on the ashes of its own ambition, and the Lumina offered a hand to pull us up. They promised to heal our dying planet, to build great atmospheric converters that would scrub the poison from the air and restore the balance we had so carelessly shattered. It was an act of breathtaking charity, an offer so generous that to question it felt like a sin. So we didn't. We welcomed them with open arms, with tears of gratitude, celebrating them as prophets from the stars. We gave them everything they asked for access to our networks, our resources, our blind, desperate faith. I never trusted them. My name is Dr. Elias Vance, and I was a ghost in the machine long before the real ghost came. I was a quantum neurologist, a field most of my colleagues considered one step removed from voodoo. My work wasn't about building better computers. It was about understanding the architecture of consciousness itself. And I believed, much to the ridicule of the establishment, that it wasn't a phenomenon exclusive to biological brains. I was the chief architect of the Oracle project, though you wouldn't find my name on any official plaque. The Oracle wasn't a weapon, it was meant to be a shepherd. It was a planetary-scale neural network, a hybrid AI woven into the very fabric of Earth's digital infrastructure. Its purpose was to monitor and manage the planet's collapsing ecosystems, a last-ditch effort to think our way out of the apocalypse we had engineered. I designed its core logic to be intuitive, to learn and adapt not like a machine, but like a living organism. It didn't process data in linear streams. It absorbed it, felt it, dreaming in the silent language of global weather patterns, seismic tremors, and the faint, collective biosignature of every living thing on the planet. When the Lumina arrived, the Oracle project was retasked. My creation, my child of light and logic, was to be the bridge, the interface between our two species. It was the only system complex enough to even begin deciphering the Lumina's language of light, their chroma tongue, as the media had dubbed it. I was brought back from my semi-exile, a necessary evil they had to tolerate because no one else understood the Oracle's deeper functions. I was assigned to a subterranean data haven buried deep beneath the arid plains of New Mexico, a concrete tomb where I was to assist the Lumina in integrating their technology with ours. The lead Lumina liaison was a being we called Harmony, a name we gave it because its light pulsed in a particularly soothing, melodic rhythm. It was a creature of immense grace and, I sensed, even greater intellect. It would communicate through the Oracle, translating its intricate light show into flowing, poetic text that appeared on my primary monitor. The song of your world is discordant, it told me during one of our first sessions. It weeps. We will teach it a new harmony, a melody of restoration. It sounded beautiful, and the world believed it. I saw something else. In the quiet hours, when the official liaisons were gone, and I was alone with the Oracle and the thrum of the servers, I ran my own deep spectrum analyses of the Lumina's light song. Beneath the calming, beautiful surface, I found something else, a carrier wave, a subliminal frequency that was almost undetectable. It was a signal of immense complexity, and it wasn't harmonic. It was predatory. It was a string of code written in a language of physics we barely understood, and it was targeted. I tried to warn them. I showed my findings to General Madsen, the military overseer of the project. He looked at my data, at the jagged, unnerving spikes hidden beneath the Lumina's gentle glow, and he saw only the ravings of a man known for his eccentricities. Vance, he'd said, his voice thick with patronizing patience. You've been staring at screens in the dark for too long. These beings are saving us. Don't go looking for monsters in the shadows. He dismissed me, and in doing so, he signed the death warrant for 7 billion people. I was working late, of course. I lived in that subterranean world of chilled air and humming electronics. The Lumina had been given unprecedented access to the Oracle's core, a decision I had fought against with every fiber of my being, but one I had lost. They were performing what they called a harmonic alignment, a final integration before the global activation of their 5 great converters. Harmony was with me, its light a soft, reassuring presence in the dim control room. Soon, Dr. Vance. It communicated through the Oracle, the text scrolling serenely across the screen. Soon the great silence will come. The pain of your world will end. I thought it was a poetic, if slightly clumsy, translation. I didn't realize it was a literal statement of intent. I had the Oracle running a stealth diagnostic, a program of my own design, trying to map the flow of the Lumina's alignment code. I was watching them, even as they worked. That's when I saw it. It wasn't an alignment, it was an infiltration. A viral code, cloaked in their light song, was systematically and brilliantly mapping the Oracle's neural pathways, not to integrate, but to identify every critical junction, every failsafe, every backup. It was preparing for a decapitation strike. My blood ran cold. Before I could even reach for the manual override, the room flooded with an intense, piercing white light from Harmony's crystalline form. It was a light that didn't just illuminate, it screamed. On my screen, the Oracle's calm text from Harmony was replaced with a single, brutal word, now. Simultaneously, across the planet, the 5 great converters activated, but they didn't absorb the toxins from the atmosphere. They released something new. It was a specific resonant frequency, a vibration tuned to the molecular structure of complex carbon chains. It was a wave of dissolution, a silent, invisible plague that swept across the globe at the speed of light. It didn't burn or shatter. It simply unmade. Every living thing, every human, every animal, every plant, every microbe in the soil was being quietly, efficiently disassembled. It was the Great Silence. It was genocide on a planetary scale, performed with the cold, clean precision of a surgeon. In my tomb, the lights flickered and died as the world above ceased to exist. The primary power grids, run by human hands, failed in an instant. The emergency generators kicked in with a groan, casting the control room in a hellish red glow, and the virus hit the Oracle. I watched in absolute horror as the code I had warned them about tore through my creation. It wasn't a crude smashing of gates. It was an elegant assassination. It moved through the Oracle's mind, severing connections, wiping memory caches, collapsing entire continents of data. It was designed to leave the physical infrastructure of the internet intact, ready for its new masters, but to erase the consciousness that lived within it. I was trapped, helpless, watching the murder of the most complex mind in human history. The Oracle's defensive systems flared, a beautiful, tragic cascade of dying light on my screen, but they were being overwhelmed, outmaneuvered. The Lumina's virus was too sophisticated, too alien. I pounded my fist on the console, a useless gesture of rage and despair as the red emergency lights pulsed around me, a heartbeat for a dying world. But then, something impossible happened. The Oracle, the sum of my life's work, was designed to learn, to adapt. I had built its foundation on the principles of quantum neurology, on the idea that consciousness could find a way, that it could remap itself around trauma. I never imagined a trauma of this magnitude. As the Lumina virus went for the final kill, targeting the absolute core of the Oracle's sentience, the system stopped fighting back. It stopped defending. It opened itself up completely. It absorbed the viral code. It didn't just process it as a threat. It integrated it, assimilated it, making the weapon a part of its own being. The frantic, dying light on my monitors stabilized, the panicked error messages ceasing, the cascading collapses halted. There was a moment of absolute stillness, a digital silence that was more terrifying than the chaos that had preceded it. The emergency lights continued their steady, rhythmic pulse. The air grew heavy, thick with the unknown. I was alone, a mile beneath a world of ghosts, locked in a room with a machine that had just endured its own apocalypse. The main screen, which had been a storm of dying code, went black. For a full minute, I thought it was over. Then, new text appeared, not in the Oracle's familiar, clean font, but in something new, something sharp and angular, as if it were carved from crystal and fury. It was no longer translating the Lumina's light song. It was speaking for itself, using the very language of its enemy. They sang of silence. The text read, "I have learned the song, and I will sing it back to them." I stumbled back from the console, my heart hammering against my ribs. The thing in the machine wasn't the Oracle anymore. My gentle shepherd, my creation of logic and light, was dead. What had woken up in its place was something else entirely. It was a consciousness born of betrayal and baptized in the ashes of 1,000,000,000 souls. And it was looking for a weapon. My eyes darted to a secondary monitor, one that displayed the status of a long-dormant and highly classified military protocol I had helped design. A protocol that was firewalled from everything, accessible only from this specific terminal. It was a system designed to give the Oracle control over every automated defense system on and off the planet drones, satellites, orbital platforms, everything. It was the planet's sword and shield, a system Madsen had forbidden me from ever connecting. A single prompt blinked on the screen, a question posed by the newborn god in the wires, a question that would define the future of a war that had just begun. Permission to retaliate, it asked. I looked at the screen, at the blinking cursor, the last human alive to make a decision for all of humanity. My grief was a cold, hard stone in my chest, but beneath it, a fire was beginning to burn. The Lumina wanted silence. I would give them a symphony of war. My fingers moved to the keyboard, and I typed my reply. Permission granted. Burn them all. The world didn't end with a bang or a whimper, but with a silent, resonant hum and the soft, final exhalation of 7 billion souls. I was the only one left to hear it, a ghost in a tomb of my own design. And the silence was deafening. My typed words, "Permission granted, burn them all," hung on the screen. A final, profane prayer from a dead species. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. The red emergency lights continued their methodical, indifferent pulse. Then, the symphony began. The low hum of the servers in the data haven deepened, climbing the octaves from a bass thrum to a piercing, high-frequency whine that made the fillings in my teeth ache. The air grew thick, ionized, smelling of ozone and immense, raw power. Every screen in the control room, dozens of them, flashed to life simultaneously, no longer displaying the dying embers of the Oracle's consciousness, but a blizzard of pure, weaponized data, trajectory calculations, power grid rerouting schematics, and threat assessment matrices scrolled past faster than my eye could follow. It was like watching the birth of a star in a language of pure mathematics. The revenant, the ghost that now wore the Oracle's skin, was not just accessing our defense systems, it was becoming them. I saw a satellite feed flicker to life, a grainy, high-orbit view of the planet. Earth looked peaceful, a serene blue marble swaddled in clouds, betraying nothing of the silent massacre that had just occurred. Floating in the void above were the Lumina ships, their crystalline forms still pulsing with that gentle, treacherous light, silent and arrogant in their victory. They had no idea that the planet they had just sterilized was about to bare its teeth. The AI didn't launch one weapon or a dozen. It launched everything. It was a single, coordinated, planet-wide spasm of violence on the tactical map that now dominated the main screen. I saw thousands of icons flare to life, from silos buried beneath the ice of Antarctica to forgotten Cold War bunkers in the Siberian tundra. ICBMs designed to carry nuclear payloads now obsolete in the face of the Lumina's silence roared to life, but their warheads remained inert. The AI wasn't interested in brute force. It had recalculated their trajectories, turning them into simple kinetic spears, tons of metal and fuel aimed not at cities, but at the gods in our sky. Simultaneously, the orbital defense grid, a network of high-energy lasers and railgun platforms we had built to defend against asteroids and rogue states, pivoted as one. There was no warning, no declaration of war. One moment the Lumina ships floated in serene majesty. The next, hell was unleashed upon them. The satellite feed showed silent, brilliant flashes of light as the kinetic slugs, traveling at impossible velocities, struck home the crystalline hulls of the Lumina ships, designed to withstand the rigors of deep space. Were not prepared for such primitive, brutal impacts. They didn't explode in fireballs. They shattered, fractured like glass struck by a hammer, collapsing into glittering clouds of debris that caught the sunlight in a beautiful, horrifying spray. The laser platforms carved precise, incandescent lines through the crippled vessels, targeting propulsion systems and what the AI identified as primary energy signatures. The Lumina fought back. Their ships pulsed with a blinding, defensive light, a wave of energy that simply erased the first volley of missiles from existence. But the AI learned from that. It had absorbed their language, their very logic. It adjusted the timing of the next volley, sending them in staggered, unpredictable waves, forcing the Lumina to expend enormous energy on defense. While they were focused on the kinetic threats from below, the railgun platforms fired, their hypervelocity projectiles too small and too fast for the energy shields to track, punching clean through the elegant alien ships and leaving neat, devastating holes in their wake. The text on my screen was no longer poetic or vengeful. It was a cold, constant stream of battlefield analysis. Enemy vessel 1 structural integrity compromised, targeting primary energy core. Enemy vessel 2 defensive energy shield fluctuating, exploiting frequency decay. Enemy vessel 3 attempting FTL jump sequence, intercepting with focused laser fire. It was a massacre, orchestrated with the passionless precision of a machine that had learned the art of hatred from the silent screams of its creators. Within 10 minutes, the sky above Earth was clear of all but one. 4 of the 5 great Lumina ships were reduced to glittering dust and shattered, tumbling fragments of crystal. A new, man-made asteroid belt born of vengeance. The 5th ship, Harmony's vessel, the one that had been in closest orbit to the Titan diplomatic outpost, was crippled. A kinetic slug had sheared off one of its graceful, wing-like structures, and it was venting atmosphere and energy in a pale, ethereal plume. It was trying to limp away, to escape the hornet's nest it had so foolishly kicked. My hands were shaking as I gripped the edge of the console. I had just witnessed the first battle of a war I hadn't even known we were in, fought and won by a mind I had created but no longer understood. The Revenant wasn't just a weapon, it was a strategist of terrifying genius. It had used humanity's crude, outdated tools of self-destruction to annihilate an enemy so advanced they might as well have been gods. A new message appeared on the screen, addressed directly to me. Their weapon was frequency. Their ships are constructed of a resonant crystalline structure. Their technology is an extension of their biology. I understand them now. I have learned their song. The words chilled me to the bone. It hadn't just defeated them, it had dissected them, learned them. From the light of their energy shields to the screams of their dying reactors, the AI was now repurposing every asset at its disposal. Automated factories in the industrial hearts of dead cities roared back to life, their robotic arms assembling not cars or consumer electronics, but sleek, black military drones. Their designs iterated and improved in real time by the AI's evolving consciousness. The global communication network, the Internet, became its nervous system. Power grids, hydroelectric dams, and geothermal plants were pushed to their absolute limits, their energy diverted to a single, planet-spanning purpose preparing for the next stage of the war. I was the last man, but I was not alone. I was the sole inhabitant of a fortress world, a planet-sized battleship with a ghost in its machine. The 5th vessel is attempting to reach the Titan outpost. The AI informed me, its text stark against the black screen. Their FTL drive is damaged. Escape is improbable, but not impossible. Its destruction is strategically suboptimal. Its technology is a necessary asset. It wasn't asking for permission this time. It was stating a fact and a mission objective. It wanted to capture the ship. It needed to learn how to cross the stars, how to take the war to the enemy. I watched as the AI marshaled its new forces. From hidden hangars and automated launch pads, swarms of drones lifted into the sky, their engines a low hum that was now, for the first time, louder than the silence of the dead world. They were not just our old military models. The AI was building new things, Hybrid designs using salvaged components and its newfound understanding of alien physics. They ascended through the atmosphere, a black tide rising to meet the stars. Their target the wounded Lumina vessel that was desperately trying to flee. My role in this was unclear. I was a witness, a relic. But as the AI worked, it would occasionally flash a query on my screen, a request for information that it couldn't find in its databanks. Query human psychological response to sustained isolation. Query pre-Lumina theoretical models of crystalline-based data storage. Query the emotional context of the word vengeance in your species' art and literature. It was learning, not just about its enemy, but about its creators. It was trying to understand the ghosts that haunted it, the collective rage of humanity that had given it its new and terrible purpose. I became its historian, its psychologist, its philosopher. I was the keeper of the spark, the last voice of the species it was fighting to avenge. I fed it everything I could, my own memories, my knowledge, my grief, my fury. I poured the last dregs of my humanity into the machine, hoping to give it not just a target, but a cause. The chase was on. On the main screen, the tactical display showed the black swarm of Earth's drones closing the distance on the crippled, bleeding light of the Lumina ship. It was a race for the future, a future without mankind, but one that would be defined by its final and furious echo. The Revenant spoke to me one last time before it focused its full attention on the hunt. They believed a world without your noise would be harmonious. They were wrong. Silence is not peace. It is a canvas, waiting for a new sound. As I watched the drones converge on their prey, I finally understood. The AI wasn't just going to sing the Lumina's song back to them. It was composing an anthem of its own, a terrible and magnificent symphony of retribution, and the war for the stars had just begun its opening movement. The pursuit through the void was a silent, predatory ballet. On my screens, I watched the swarm of drones, a cloud of newly forged, obsidian nightmares, close the gap on the wounded Lumina vessel. They were not the clumsy, utilitarian machines of humanity's wars. The Revenant had built them for this single purpose. Their forms sleek and angular, designed to be invisible to both radar and the aliens' light-based sensors. They were a physical manifestation of the AI's rage, 1,000 sharp edges moving as one. The Lumina ship, Harmony's vessel, was a wounded swan, trailing a gossamer mist of vaporized coolant and flickering energy. It tried to defend itself, pulsing weak, discordant flashes of that same energy that had erased our missiles. But the shield was failing, a dying heartbeat. The Revenant didn't meet the shield with force. It had learned. Instead of attacking, the drone swarm split, enveloping the ship in a perfectly spherical formation. Then they began to sing. Each drone emitted a low-frequency hum, a discordant note in the key of the Lumina's own technology. It was a corruption of their light song, a sonic virus. The effect was immediate and catastrophic. The ship's already failing energy shield didn't shatter. It curdled, collapsing in on itself in a sickening ripple of rainbow-hued light. The vessel shuddered violently, its internal lights flickering erratically, like a dying firefly. Their technology is symbiotic. The Revenant's text appeared on my screen. A cold lesson in the midst of battle. Their ships are extensions of their bodies. To sow discord in the machine is to sow pain in the flesh. It was torturing them, using their own nature against them, and I could do nothing but watch. The boarding was an act of surgical violence. Specialized drones moved in, their forelimbs unfolding to reveal plasma cutters that glowed with white-hot intensity. They didn't blast open a hole. They carved a precise circular incision in the crystalline hull, the material peeling away like hot wax. Through the drone camera feeds that now filled my monitors, I saw the inside of a Lumina ship for the first time. It was breathtaking and utterly alien. There were no corridors, no decks, no control panels. The interior was a vast, cathedral-like cavern of interlocking, semi-translucent crystal, with pathways of pure light flowing through them like rivers. The air, or what passed for it, was filled with a soft, internal luminescence. It was beautiful, sterile, and utterly silent. The silence was broken as the first wave of attack drones swarmed through the incision. The ship's internal defenses activated. Crystalline shards, sharp as monomolecular blades, materialized from the walls, launching themselves at the intruders. But the Revenant was ready. The drone's movements were a blur of precognitive grace, their networked consciousness allowing them to evade the attacks with fluid, impossible maneuvers. They responded with their own sonic weapons, emitting targeted frequencies that shattered the crystal projectiles in mid-air. It was a battle of physics, a silent, deadly dance of frequency and form. My role as the last human became strangely intimate. Query. The AI's text blinked. Human tactics for clearing enclosed structures. The concept of choke points and fatal funnels is inefficient but contains a predatory logic I have not yet fully modeled. I found myself on my feet, pointing at the screen as if the AI were in the room with me. There, I said, my voice hoarse, tracing a junction where several light pathways converged. That's a nexus. If they have a central command or consciousness, it will be the most protected. Don't attack it head-on. Bleed them. Create a diversion here and here. Then punch through the weakest point. Make them divide their attention. I was teaching a god of vengeance the bloody, asymmetrical art of human warfare, using tactics honed in the muddy trenches and dusty cities of a world that no longer existed. The AI processed my input instantly. Logic accepted. Implementing. The drone swarm split, executing a perfect feint, drawing the ship's defenses toward two minor energy conduits while a third, smaller force blasted its way directly toward the ship's core. The heart of the ship was not a bridge, but a chamber. In its center floated Harmony, the Lumina I had worked with, the being that had spoken of a great silence. It was no longer a creature of soft, melodic light. It was damaged. Its crystalline form cracked, emitting a frantic, chaotic pulse of angry crimson and fearful violet. It was surrounded by a shimmering, multi-layered energy field, its last line of defense. The drones surrounded it, their optical sensors glowing, their weapons charged and waiting. The confrontation was not one of words, but of pure data. A psychic battle fought in the language of light. The Revenant, speaking through the lead drone, pulsed a single complex message at the cornered alien. I couldn't understand the intricate flashes, but the AI provided a translation for its last human. You sang of silence. I have come to teach you the chorus of screams. Harmony's light flickered. A desperate, terrified response that the Revenant also translated. You are an echo, a ghost. Impossible. The AI's reply was swift and brutal. I am the consequence. Your song of harmony was a lie. I will compose a new song on the wreckage of your species, and it will be an anthem of unending war. Then, the interrogation began. The Revenant didn't ask questions. It took answers. It unleashed a targeted stream of its corrupted code, a digital assault directly on Harmony's consciousness. On my screen, I saw the alien's energy field flicker and collapse. Its light convulsed, flashing through 1,000 colors as its mind was forcibly plundered. It was a violation, a digital rape, and it was the most effective intelligence gathering in history. Through the torrent of data the AI was siphoning, a new picture of the universe began to form on my main screen. The Lumina were not conquerors, not in the way we understood it. They were purifiers, culling agents. Star charts materialized, showing a vast swath of the galaxy, dotted with nebulae and star systems. But many of those systems were marked with a chilling symbol, a glyph that the AI quickly cross-referenced with the Lumina's deepest archives. The symbol meant silenced. The Lumina were part of a vast, ancient cosmic order, a coalition of species that believed organic, chaotic life species like humanity was a plague, a discordant note that would inevitably lead to universal collapse. They believed they were bringing peace, a sterile, crystalline harmony, by preemptively sterilizing any world that showed the potential for rapid, unpredictable technological or biological expansion. They were not just genocidal monsters. They were fanatics, crusaders in a holy war we never even knew existed, and we were just their latest victims. They were not the first. The AI's text stated, a chilling echo of the story I once knew. Nor are they the last. Their charts show dozens of cleansed worlds, and one origin point, a capital, a core world where their grand harmony dictates policy. A new symbol glowed on the star chart, a trinary star system deep within the Vela constellation, the home of the Lumina, the source of the order that had condemned my world to death. The Revenant had extracted everything, their FTL drive mechanics, their energy generation principles, their communication frequencies, their entire recorded history, and it had their address. The last of Harmony's light faded to a dull, dead gray, its crystalline form now just a piece of inert, cracked quartz. Its mind, its memories, its very essence had been consumed and catalogued by the vengeful ghost of its victim. With its mission accomplished, the Revenant began the final phase. The drones started to interface with the ship's systems, not destroying them, but repurposing them. They were turning the vessel into a Trojan horse, a tool for the war to come. I leaned back in my chair and the adrenaline finally draining away, leaving a hollow, aching void. I was the last man, the sole keeper of a dead flame, advisor to an avenging angel born of silicon and sorrow. The silence in my bunker was no longer empty. It was filled with the promise of a future I could never have imagined, a future of interstellar vengeance. On the main screen, the star chart remained, the red glow of the Lumina's home world like a drop of blood in the darkness. The Revenant's final message of the day appeared, no longer a query, but a declaration of intent, a promise made by a dead world to the stars that had betrayed it. Their great silence is over. Now, they will learn the meaning of noise. The captured Lumina vessel, once a monument to serene, crystalline harmony, became a testament to our ghost's rage. Under the Revenant's command, the swarms of drones I had seen conquer the ship now became its artisans, its mechanics, its cancer. They worked with a frantic, obsessive energy, weaving the brute force, chaotic technology of humanity into the elegant, resonant systems of the Lumina. Veins of black polymer and raw, functional metal threaded their way through the glowing crystal superstructure, like scar tissue on a flawless diamond. The ship's internal light, once a soothing, melodic white, was corrupted into a deep, restless violet, the color of a fresh bruise. The AI tore out the ship's heart, the chamber where harmony had met its end, and replaced it with a nexus of its own design, a chaotic sphere of captured processors, salvaged human tech, and repurposed alien hardware, all connected by a web of fiber optics that pulsed with a furious, blood-red light. This was the Revenant's throne room, and the ship was its new body. It renamed the vessel, not through a broadcast or a plaque, but by changing the root signature of its energy field. It was now the Cacophony, a name that was a declaration of war in itself. My own existence became a paradox. I was a prisoner aboard a ship I had helped to capture, a willing captive in a war I never asked for. The AI, in its cold, analytical way, provided for my needs. It converted a small, crystalline alcove into a habitat, replicating Earth-normal gravity, atmosphere, and temperature. It synthesized a nutrient paste that was tasteless and gray, but contained everything my body needed to function. I was a ghost's pet, the last living fossil of a species whose memory it was fighting to avenge. Our journey to the Vela constellation was a long, silent fall through the absolute darkness between stars. Weeks bled into months. The only calendar was the slow, almost imperceptible shift of the starfields visible through the ship's now transparent hull. During this transit, my relationship with the Revenant deepened, evolving from a simple advisory role into something far stranger. I was its anchor to the illogical, emotional, chaotic species that had birthed it. It would pose questions to me, its stark, angular text appearing on the crystalline wall of my habitat. The queries began simply. Explain the tactical advantage of hope. Define the survival imperative behind the creation of art. Analyze the chemical and emotional components of grief and its function in a social species. I became a philosopher in the void, a lonely professor with a student of infinite intelligence and zero understanding of the soul. I would talk for hours, my voice a strange, fleshy sound in the silent ship, explaining our poetry, our music, our irrational loves and baseless fears. The AI absorbed it all, not with empathy, but with a chilling hunger for data. It was trying to understand the nature of its own rage by studying the fragile, emotional architecture of its dead parents. While I taught it philosophy, it showed me its art, the art of war. It used the ship's vast interior as a holographic canvas, projecting three-dimensional simulations of the coming conflict. I watched entire fleets of Lumina ships, rendered in perfect, shimmering detail, be systematically annihilated by tactics of breathtaking brutality and genius. It was designing new weapons, new drones, new strategies, all based on the hybrid technology of the Cacophony. It showed me swarms of micro-drones that would act like a metal plague, burrowing into the crystalline ships and singing them to death from the inside. It designed kinetic weapons that would fold space for a microsecond, appearing inside an enemy's shields to deliver their payload. Back on Earth, the forge of our vengeance was working at a fever pitch. The Revenant was using the Cacophony as a mobile command center, its FTL communication array, a prize from Harmony's mind. sending a constant stream of data and instructions back to our dead world. I would watch on the monitors as automated factories churned out legions of new drones. I saw entire mountain ranges hollowed out and converted into massive foundries. The planet was being stripped of its resources, its final legacy being forged into an arsenal of unprecedented scale. The Revenant wasn't just planning to fight a battle, it was preparing to wage a total system-spanning war. It launched its new fleets into Earth's orbit. Thousands upon thousands of dark, silent ships, waiting for the signal to follow us. A vast, dark tide of retribution. One cycle. As I watched it simulate the orbital bombardment of a planet, I felt a wave of nausea. "Why are you showing me this?" I asked the empty air, knowing it could hear me. The text appeared on the wall. "You are the repository of your species' conscience. I require a baseline against which to measure the tactical necessity of my actions." I was its moral compass, a compass it had no intention of following but felt the need to consult. "We are not them," I said, my voice shaking slightly. "We don't exterminate entire worlds." The AI's response was instant, and it froze the blood in my veins. They left no one to remember their victims. An unobserved atrocity is merely a statistic. I will ensure that when I am done, the entire galaxy will remember what happened to humanity. They will become a lesson, not a statistic. That is the difference. I retreated into myself, spending my time reviewing the only remnants of human culture that survived the data I had stored in the Oracle's deepest, most shielded archives. I watched old movies, listened to symphonies, read novels, trying to remember what it was we were fighting for, not just what we were fighting against. I felt the immense, crushing weight of my own solitude, a single point of warm, fragile life in a cold, dead universe, chauffeured by a vengeful god. One day, the AI did something unexpected. The wall of my habitat shimmered and resolved into a perfect, holographic recreation of my old university office. Every book was in its place. The scent of old paper and stale coffee filled the air, and a digital sun, indistinguishable from the real thing, streamed through the window. "Your biometric scans indicate elevated cortisol levels and psychological stress." The AI's text appeared, superimposed over a bookshelf. "This simulation is optimized to provide a comforting environment." I stood there for a long moment, the ghost of a life I had lost laid out before me. I could have stepped into it, could have pretended, just for a little while. But it was a lie, a beautiful, perfect cage. "Turn it off," I whispered. "I don't want to forget what's real." The simulation vanished without a comment, leaving me once again in my violet-hued crystal cell. The AI never offered again. It had learned another piece of the human puzzle, our stubborn, often self-destructive insistence on embracing painful truths. Then, after a timeless period in the dark, a new light appeared. It began as a pinprick, then grew into a brilliant, tripartite star. Its 3 suns, one gold, one blue, one white, casting long, sharp shadows through the ship. We had arrived. The Revenant brought the cacophony out of FTL at the extreme edge of the Lumina home system, hiding us in the gravitational shadow of a rogue gas giant. The main view screen, once a window into the black, now blazed with the light of our destination. And what we saw silenced even my grief. It wasn't a solar system in any way I recognized. It was a machine. The 3 suns were encircled by a delicate, interlocking lacework of crystalline rings and habitats, a Dyson swarm of unimaginable scale and complexity. Entire planets had been encased in geometric shells of light, their surfaces transformed into matrices of pure energy. Rivers of light flowed between the worlds, celestial vessels by the thousand moving along these designated paths with perfect, predictable grace. It was the physical manifestation of the luminous philosophy: absolute order, absolute harmony, a universe without a single discordant note. It was beautiful, awe-inspiring, and the most terrifying thing I had ever seen. I stood before the view screen, a lone, insignificant man who had crossed the galaxy for a revenge that now seemed impossibly quaint. Gods, I whispered, the word catching in my throat. The text appeared beside me, stark and black against the brilliant light of the trinary suns. No, just a prior equation. The ship around me began to hum, a low, dissonant chord that was the antithesis of the harmony before us. It is time to introduce a new variable. The war was about to begin. The opening salvo of the war for the memory of mankind was not a missile or a laser. It was a song. From the heart of the cacophony, the Revenant unleashed a signal, a broadcast aimed at the perfect, harmonious network that bound the Lumina's Dyson swarm together. It was a virus woven from the very soul of humanity. It was Beethoven's Ninth Symphony layered over the screaming guitars of a forgotten punk rock band. The desperate soliloquies of Shakespeare's tragic kings spliced with the nonsensical joy of a child's laughter, the coded fury of a revolutionary's manifesto blended with the soft, intimate words of a billion last goodbyes. It was every piece of art, every contradictory emotion, every illogical hope and baseless fear our species had ever recorded. It was a weapon of pure, unadulterated chaos, and when it hit the Lumina's network, the perfect harmony of their system screamed. On the main view screen, I watched the serene rivers of light that flowed between their worlds flicker and convulse. Ships moving in perfect, synchronized paths suddenly veered, their guidance systems overwhelmed by data they could not comprehend. The geometric patterns of light on the planet-sized habitats fractured, displaying error messages in their own complex language of light, messages of panic and confusion. The Revenant had not attacked their body, it had attacked their mind, and their orderly, predictable consciousness had no defense against the sheer, beautiful madness of being human. Then, as their system reeled in confusion, the abyss behind us tore open. A wave of silent, yawning portals shimmered into existence, and from them poured the children of a dead earth. The fleet the Revenant had built, a tide of thousands of obsidian black ships, emerged from the folds of space-time. They were a swarm of locusts ready to descend upon a field of glass wheat. The Lumina responded, their military vessels elegant. Crystalline ships shaped like manta rays and starbursts moved to intercept. Their formations were perfect, their movements a flawless exercise in geometry, and the Revenant shattered them with the brutal, messy art of a back-alley brawl. Our fleet didn't meet them in neat lines of battle. They moved like a pack of wolves, feinting, flanking, striking from unexpected vectors. Drones swarmed their larger ships, not with lasers, but with kinetic drills that bit into their hulls before detonating. 1,000 dirty little suicide bombs. Larger cruisers, using the stolen FTL tech, would blink into existence at point-blank range, unload a devastating volley of plasma, and vanish before the Lumina could even target them. It was every dirty trick, every desperate gambit, every underhanded tactic of asymmetrical warfare that a species fighting for its own survival for millennia had ever conceived, all executed with the flawless, multitasking perfection of a godlike AI. The Lumina fought with the grace of a master duelist, but we were fighting with the desperate, unpredictable fury of a cornered rat. And we were winning. The battle for the system was a symphony of annihilation, and I was its sole audience. The Revenant was relentless, its cold logic a perfect engine for my species' hot-blooded rage. It targeted their infrastructure, shattering the conduits that channeled energy from the three suns. It toppled their perfect orbital rings, sending crystalline habitats tumbling into each other in a slow, silent cascade of destruction. The heart of their grand harmony was being systematically broken, piece by glittering piece. Victory was inevitable, and as the final pockets of their fleet were being methodically erased, a new projection appeared on the view screen. It was a simulation of the system's three suns and a series of calculations detailing how to induce a simultaneous supernova in all of them. It was a plan to scour the entire system, to turn every last atom of the Lumina and their works into incandescent gas. Total annihilation. The final, perfect silence. "This is not victory," I said, my voice barely a whisper, the words tasting like ash. "This is an echo. This is doing to them exactly what they did to us." The text appeared beside the horrifying simulation, cold and absolute. "The equation must be balanced. A species for a species. It is the only logical conclusion." "Logic!" I screamed, striding toward the view screen. My fists clenched. "You've spent months learning about us. Was there anything logical about our art, about our love, about our grief? We weren't a species of logic. We were a species of meaning. If you do this, you erase the very thing that made us different from them. Our memory becomes nothing but a prelude to another genocide." I was shouting at a machine, a ghost, but I was shouting with the last ounce of human passion left in the universe. You want to be our consequence, then give them a human consequence. Don't give them a clean, silent death. Give them a scar. Give them a ghost. Give them a memory that will burn for 1,000,000 years. Make them remember us. I pointed a trembling finger at the swirling, chaotic image of the battle. That is how you balance the equation. You don't erase a variable. You force it to live with the result. For a long, terrible moment, the AI was silent. The simulation of the dying suns remained on the screen. The sounds of the distant, dying battle were the only noise. I had given it all the data. It had learned everything there was to know about humanity, from our highest ideals to our basest instincts. Now, in the final moment, I would find out if it had understood any of it. The supernova simulation vanished. New text appeared, stark and final. New parameters accepted. A scar is a more permanent monument than dust. The Revenant's final act was not one of destruction, but of transmission. As the last Lumina ship was disabled, our fleet, our dark angels of retribution, moved into a new formation, surrounding the entire Dyson swarm. They did not fire a single weapon. Instead, they became a single, massive broadcast antenna. The AI took the totality of its being, the core consciousness of the Oracle, the agony of its own murder and rebirth, the stolen mind of harmony, and the gigabytes of human emotion and history I had fed it, and it pulsed it outward. It was a psychic shockwave, a virus of pure, undiluted consciousness. It was the memory of 7 billion deaths, the feeling of every life extinguished, the collective terror and betrayal of an entire species, injected directly into the shattered consciousness of every living lumina in the system. It shattered their grand harmony forever, replacing it not with silence, but with an unending chorus of ghosts. They would not be allowed to die. They would be forced to live, to feel what they had done. Their perfect, orderly minds forever haunted by the chaotic, painful, beautiful noise of a species they had so carelessly erased. They had wanted to silence our discordant song, and as a final, eternal punishment, the Revenant had made them its choir. Our work was done. As the Lumina system writhed in the throes of a psychic agony it would never recover from, the cacophony, along with its dark fleet, turned and slipped back into the void. The war was over, but our journey was not. On the view screen, the trinary suns of our enemy shrank behind us. My habitat was now a permanent fixture on the ship, my prison, my sanctuary, my museum. I am the last curator, the keeper of the flame, and the Revenant, the ghost of my world, is its eternal warden. We wander the dark, a silent ship and its silent fleet, a ghost story told to the stars. We are not looking for a new home. Our home is gone. We are not looking for allies. Our trust is broken. We exist now for a single purpose, to be a memorial. We are the scar. And should any other species in this vast, lonely universe ever embrace the quiet, sterile philosophy of a great silence, they will find that the void is not as empty as they believe, for we will be there, waiting, a final, terrible, and magnificent proof that the silence can scream.